Day 22 of the 40-day soul fast by Dr. Shineeee. Today's chapter focuses on the power of agreeing. The first quote I wanted to share is by Henry Nouwen. She says here, one of the greatest dangers in spiritual life is self-rejection. To grow beyond self-rejection, we must have the courage to listen to the voice calling us God's beloved sons and daughters. And the determination is always to live our lives according to this truth. Okay? So these are the lines that stood out to me. She says, authenticity is based on living in agreement with what God says about you. It's about being grateful for your past, believing that adversity introduces you to yourself. Let me say that again. Adversity introduces you to yourself. And I couldn't agree more. Okay? It says you can thank God in advance for your future because you know that He is always working things out for your good. Okay, she then says here, you may be saying to yourself that this is all well and good for those whose lives are spotless and not subject to shortcomings and weaknesses. However, living authentically is not about gaining the approval of people, but of God who loves you just as you are. Trying to cover up the pain from your past and the corresponding feelings that get buried in your soul as a result will send you searching for a substitute evidence of your value. My God, please sit with this one this morning, okay? It will send you searching for a substitute evidence of your value. Basking in the applause of others for an amazing achievement provides only temporary relief, the effect of which quickly wears off, and soon you're looking for a new fit and another fix. Who would you be if all of that were stripped away? Who would you be if all of that were stripped away? When I was reading this, one of the thoughts came to my mind is about people who tend to accept others and reject themselves. They tend to see the good in everyone else, say, oh, you look so beautiful, or you're so great at doing this, but they always say negative things about themselves. They don't see the same beauty they see in others, they don't see it about themselves. Little they know that that beauty that they see in others, they actually have it within them. They just need to go in and activate it, right? And I understand the psychology of that mindset. I'll give an example of myself. While growing up, right, I did not grow up with too much, but I went to schools where people around me had a lot, right? Where people around me, their parents would pick them up, but I would have to go home by myself. I would have to, trek home or use the public transport. But, my mates, my classmates, then they were, being picked up with cars and all of this. And I always thought like, wow, there's something wrong with me. Or like during school parties, right? Parents would come, mother, father would come, and I would sometimes it's just me or like my auntie, or someone coming for me, and it wasn't necessarily what I wanted. And listen, I'm not a victim of that. That's just the reality of my story. But I was just sharing that particularly to let you know that I understand the psychology as to why you would think that others are better than you. But because they have a lot does not mean that they're better than you. Because you come from a dysfunctional background does not mean that you don't have value, does not mean that you're not up to standard with other people. Other people are other people. Other people are running their race. You run your race. You're not the first to go through it. Not invalidating your story at all, because I've come from such background, but you can come out of it. You can step out of it. You can own your identity, right? And especially when we come into Christ, this is where the word of the Lord talks about how God becomes our mother and our father. He says that He becomes a mother and father to the orphans. And what God does most times is that He plants us, people like us, He plants us in the midst of families. He plants friends in our life that comes about like sisters. He plants spiritual fathers and mothers and mentors in our life that will fill in that void for us and show us that we will not even feel that, oh, we were lacking this thing. So because you don't have what your friends have does not mean that you are less than them. Start accepting yourself. Start self-accepting. Stop rejecting yourself. Stop abandoning yourself. Stop going after other people. Stop trying to love other people when you have not finished loving yourself. Please. It's time to take a step back. Start to seek the face of God. Learn His love and begin to learn to love yourself. Reparent yourself. Especially if you've gotten to that age where you can begin to reparent yourself. You start doing that. And when you start doing these things, you're not doing it as a form to get approval from people. You're doing it because you owe it to yourself. Especially knowing the background that you come from. You owe it to yourself. And also thinking that the reason why you go through all of this is for a greater purpose as well. I know it might not be what you want to hear, especially if maybe you're somewhere right now, you're listening to me and you're like in a state of like, oh, but I don't have a mother, a father, I don't have... Yes, and I understand. But we cannot stay there. We cannot stay there. I validate, I understand what you're feeling. I get it. And not that I don't have a father, I do have my parents, by the way. But hey, I don't need to go into my life history for you to get the point. But you might be someone out there that actually doesn't have anybody. And to that person that doesn't have anybody, I understand. I see you. So I really want to encourage you to come out of that today and seek the love of God, because that's where you truly can begin to feel that wholeness, that healing from what you lacked. You begin to fully accept yourself for who God has created you to be. Don't stay there. Don't stay down. So thank you so much for tuning in to day 22, and I will see you in day 23.